So I'm a big fan of clearing up confusion around intuitive eating. I've talked about on the podcast many times, there's a lot of false teachings going on, a lot of false coaching, like people actually guiding, saying it's intuitive eating, helping women, but they're super focused on weight loss, or that's the entire intention of their program. I mean, we've talked about this, that that's not true intuitive eating. But I also think there's some other confusion, especially when we talk about unconditional permission to eat. So I thought it might be really helpful to kind of define what unconditional permission is to eat, like what that means, and how you balance that, how the two things work together when we talk about unconditional permission to eat and honoring your fullness. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer D'Amato. I am an intuitive eating counselor and I'm also a mom to four. This podcast is not just for mamas, it's for all women who are ready to ditch diets, ditch the scale and food guilt forever, and instead invite peace with food, increase their body trust, and confidence in all of her choices. I believe this show is going to shed some light on sneaky ways diet culture has infiltrated your thoughts, your family, and your well-being. No matter the episode, I want you to walk away feeling informed, inspired, and encouraged. So whether you're taking a walk, washing the dishes, or carting kids around, let's dive into the latest episode on the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. One of the first questions that I ask all of my clients, whether it's in group, or it's in private coaching, like, are you willing to give yourself unconditional permission to eat? What does that mean? Because it's usually left with, wait a minute, like eat everything? Yes and no, but mostly yes. Unconditional permission to eat really is giving yourself this open door to say, I'm allowed to eat anything. Now, why do we do this? What's the intent here? I focus a lot on intent in my coaching. What's the intent? The intent is to, first of all, eat food again. Most women have been restricting so much mentally and physically, like not allowing themselves to have food. We have to eat. We have to eat. We have to nourish our body. Second thing, it's hard to address all of the hidden messages, the food rules, the the anti piece, like the food guilt, right? Like all of the messages that come with eating foods if you're not allowing yourself to eat them. Literally, what happens is when you give yourself unconditional permission to eat, which means, yep, I can have the Cheetos, the Doritos, and the salads and the pizzas, and maybe the popcorn and the lunch meats and the chicken breast, like everything. When you do that, you allow space for thoughts to come in because, you might not have a lot of thoughts about broccoli. I mean, you might not. You might have some thoughts that you need to address. For me, for a long time, it was, this is the only thing I can eat, a lot of. I was only allowed, certain foods on the macro counting that I was doing. But what I notice with every single woman I've worked with when she enters into this space is she really does allow these foods back in, and the thoughts flood. The thoughts flood in about these foods. What we want to do is remove the food guilt. It's like really my number one goal for women, and one that they really are on board with. Like, yeah, I want to stop feeling so crappy about myself if I eat foods that, aren't deemed healthy or that I've previously considered bad, or that I've been told, like, don't have too much of that. Like, there's rules around it. I heard all these messages, from my, parents. I heard these messages at school. I heard these messages online. I've heard these messages in magazines. Like, we want to address them. We want to call them out. And one of the greatest ways to do that is when you give yourself permission to eat. When you allow these foods back in and you allow them with the space to say, what comes up when I enjoy them? When I'm eating them, what do I notice? At the beginning of your intuitive eating journey, you might even hear what I'm saying is there is a lot of reflection. There is a lot of thought process going on. And I believe the best way to do this work is when you allow the thoughts to come. What we do is very strategically at first have a plan of, okay, now what? When the thoughts come in, I shouldn't be having this. This is unhealthy. This is bad. What do we do? What do we do when those thoughts come in? I teach cognitive flexibility, the power of three, with all of my clients to address thoughts. We use breathing techniques. We come at this from a multitude of angles that they have a plan in place because I know, okay, they may not know right away, but I know those thoughts are going to come up, those feelings, when you're enjoying those foods because you've given yourself unconditional permission to eat. There's no food rules. There's nothing stopping you from having those foods. Now, there's a great thing I say. I don't know. I can't say it's my quote because I was going to say there's a great quote I use. I don't think it's my quote, but I live by this is, as an intuitive eater, you can eat anything, but you don't have to eat everything. So when we're dieting and we're restricting, it does lead to overeating. There is literally research-backed data showing how restriction of any kind, that diet, that even mental restriction, I shouldn't have this, I should monitor how much I eat, is going to lead to overeating. It's going to lead to having way more of that particular food or even other foods when you restrict. So when we work on unconditional permission to eat, when we invite that in, when that's the first thing we do, is we are not only allowing those thoughts to come in, the thoughts that we have about food, the food rules, food police, like all of the other things to come in, we also address overeating. We address that piece that comes with restriction. What I hear from women time and time again is, yeah, I notice I'm not like sitting down at 9 p.m. at night and needing to, eat again because I'm actually really satisfied. Or I noticed that I only had half of the amount I thought I was going to have. Like I allowed myself to open up the bag and just enjoy the chips. This is a literal example. And normally I would have just devoured the bag and I only had half. Like it feels weird, Jen. Like what's going on here? And it really is when you remove the restriction, even the mental restriction, those thoughts of, I shouldn't be having this, I should have less. You address overeating. You're no longer doing the thing that causes the other thing, which is why these two things marry so well together. Unconditional permission to eat and honoring and respecting your fullness. It's hard to work on honoring your hunger if you don't allow foods, but it's also really hard to work on respecting your fullness, even feeling fullness that's not like uncomfortable fullness. It's really hard to do those things if you're not giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. If you're, still having those food rules dictate when, how much, why you're eating all of these things. If those food rules, the food police are coming in and, you shouldn't be having this and doing, when you remove it all, you can really press in to what fullness feels like in your body. Can I just give you this key right here? Can I just drop some words of wisdom right here, right here? You can tell yourself when you're having these foods that you're giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. Like you can remind yourself by simply saying, I can have this anytime I want. I am a grown woman. If I want to go out and buy another bag of chips, I can do that. If I want to order a burger, again tomorrow, we're out to eat and I'm having a burger, I can do that. If I want to have, pizza or Chinese food or whatever it is that you are allowing yourself to have again, I can have this again tomorrow and the next day and the next. I'm a grown up. Isn't that the great thing? Like we waited for this in childhood. Like I'm a grown up. I've actually had clients utilize this as one of the tools in honoring their fullness when they've given themselves unconditional permission to eat, knowing they can come back. Some women, we actually put it on the calendar. When's the next time you're going to have this food? what happens is you really can mindfully eat, enjoy the food. Like really, like if I'm going to eat this, I want to enjoy it. I want to savor every bite, but then also recognize fullness and then respect it. Like I feel like I'm getting full and I'm done, because you know what? I can have this again tomorrow. I could have it every single day for the rest of my life if I wanted to. That addresses that mental restriction you've put on yourself. And I have to tell you, like when you start honoring your fullness as much as you honor your hunger, oh man, you really just feel better. Like you literally feel physically better. You're nourishing your body. You're eating foods instead of getting that hangry, lightheaded, grumpy, moody. Like, do not be around me if I've had to like put off hunger for some reason. Doesn't happen very often. I'm usually very prepared, but it has happened. Don't be around me. You also don't have to get to that place anymore where fullness feels painful, uncomfortable, nauseating. I mean, maybe this is one of those things we just don't talk about enough, of how physically uncomfortable you are when you're restricting and dieting. Like the physical pain of hunger, the physical uncomfortableness eating beyond, what your body's needs are, beyond that fullness point. I don't think we address that enough. And that's another beautiful side effect, as I call them, of intuitive eating, is those physical pains, disappear for them. I'd say for the most part, they completely disappear because you're very aware, like, oh, I'm not going down that road again. I actually had a client tell me, I am never going back there. Like she was like adamant. She's like, that was horrible. I spent the majority of my adult life, I think it was like 20, 25 plus years. And she's like, I know the difference between how I felt with dieting, trying every single new diet there was, to how I feel now. And there's no way I'm going back. There's a difference between, not eating enough for your body so you never feel fullness, to eating enough where you feel comfortably full. And, I really can see where you might want to understand the difference. You might even be listening to this going, yeah, I'm not even honoring my hunger. I'm completely consumed with thoughts about food. The whole idea of, giving myself unconditional permission to eat so I can honor my hunger and fullness is new, is scary, is like, where do I start? Now, I want to let you know, I worked my tail off to put together something that I believe blends the best of education, like the knowledge part, and giving you the ability to implement everything that I teach. I created a course. It's called One Bite at a Time. And I know it's so cute, food and puns and all of that, but literally, the course is designed so you take a bite at a time. Now, my bite might look different than your bite, and your bite might look different than someone else's. It is a self-paced course for that reason, so you really can take the bite that you need and chew on it for as long as you need to. I've noticed women in the course, sometimes they'll be in a module for several weeks because they're like, I'm just kind of stuck here and I want to continue to listen to those lessons and do the work until I feel more confident. And there's other women who are like, no, I just kind of moved along and felt like I just wanted to perfect or feel more confident. Perfection is definitely not a word I use very often, but feel more confident is how I'm trying to describe that, right? In the principles, in executing this. And again, I wanted to create it as a self-pace so you really could take the time you needed, whether that was longer or you felt like, no, I can move through these. What I find is there's usually one or two principles that you're like, I just need to chew on this one a little longer. And it might be, respecting your fullness for you. It might be honoring your hunger. It really could be about body image and moving your body. Whatever it is, we cover all of it in every single module. And I want to let you know that you can start in that course today. If you scroll down to the show notes, you're going to find the One Bite at a Time course link. There's a couple options for you if you want to pay in full, or you can even do a payment plan with the course. Again, I want to make it accessible to you. If you have your computer up or your phone and you're like, you just want to go to theintuitiveeatingmama.com/course, you'll find all the details. I even share all of the modules with you right there. And you'll also see that once you're enrolled, there's also going to be a Q&A time with me. So be sure to be on the lookout for when the next Q&A is once you've enrolled, and come bring your questions, because inevitably those things are going to come up. Maybe there's something specific you need an answer for, you're looking for an added support on. I've included that with the course as well. All right. I do believe giving yourself unconditional permission to eat is so crucial in your healing journey when it comes to food and your body. And I also believe that honoring your fullness goes hand in hand with that. I know that it might seem like scary. Like, I was terrified. I haven't met a client yet who's not like, okay, I'm giving myself unconditional permission to eat, but I'm also like really nervous, until they see what happens when they do it. And then they also have the tools and strategies I share in the course, I share in my coaching, that you need to help support you when the thoughts come in, the feelings, the stress, the overwhelm, because you're allowing yourself to eat foods you may have not eaten, or eaten without guilt, let's say, right, for a really long time. I hope this was helpful, even seeing what unconditional permission to eat is, how that like marries together so well with honoring your fullness. And I really believe why it's crucial to give yourself unconditional permission to eat if you want to honor your fullness. All right, ladies, can't wait to see you in the course, the Q&A, all of that. Super, super excited. And also really excited to come right back here next week for another episode. What if you had a peaceful and uncomplicated relationship with food? I mean, what if that meant you no longer stressed when sweets and sugar was in your house? What if you went out to eat without needing to know what's on the menu ahead of time? What if you trusted your body and you knew exactly what it needed and wanted? And what if you ditched diets and diet talk in your home once and for all? If you are ready to stop stressing and obsessing about food and stop the diet cycle in your life, then I think you will love my self-paced intuitive eating course, one bite at a time. Each module is packed with information, but not just information for knowledge, information to help you implement the principles of intuitive eating. In fact, here's what one of my clients had to say about this course. Carrie says, I think all the information is broken down into really easy to process segments, and there is plenty of time to work on each area. I can't believe how far I have come in such a short space of time. If you've been looking for a self-paced intuitive eating course that also gives you amazing support and encouragement throughout, this is exactly what you've been looking for. Head into the show notes wherever you're listening and click Intuitive Eating Course, or you can head to www.theintuitiveeatingmama.com/course. You'll find 2 payment plans so that you can fit it into your budget. I can't wait to welcome you into the Intuitive Eating Course, one bite at a time.